everybody. Welcome to CISO Talk. CISO Talk might look a little bit different than you've seen in the past, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm joined by our new co-host and longtime colleague and friend, Jennifer JJ Manila. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, Mitch. Hi, everybody.
Now, you're not new to our CISO Talk audience because you've been on several panels at RSA, on virtual panels and speaking on tech-strong events, and a lot of other speaking at RSAC and conferences and things like that. So there are a number of folks in the security world that already know you.
Yes, and I'm so sorry, everybody, about that.
And you're just going to have to get to know you better. They're going to have the opportunity to do that. So we're going to spend a little bit of time. And first, I want to pay thanks and homage to Matt Newfield, who we've been working with. Alan Schimmel and I and Matt have been working with CISO Talk for a number of years, multiple episodes, and building the program to where it is. And Matt's got a very busy schedule. I'm sure he'll be back as a guest because we love him and appreciate that all he's done for us. And we're kind of taking this now to the next place. So we're going to have some format changes and maybe some new topics and things like that. And we'll get into that next. JJ, first, I'd love to have you introduce yourself to the audience. I think most folks know I'm CTO at TechStrong Group. I also am a principal and founder of our research division, TechStrong Research. And, you and I have worked together, as I mentioned, as colleagues in security at Security Products way back when. And so they know enough about me, but I would really love for you to talk more about the kind of work that you've been doing. It's evolved to some interesting places, and now with your own company that you're doing. So jump right in there.
Sure. Well, I think probably the most relevant pieces are, I've worked in technology for a very, very, very long time. I'm not going to age myself with that number. And I've worked in security for approaching 20 years at this point. So, and through that time, a lot of what I've done is kind of work in architecture between groups. Sometimes it's between two different technical groups. Sometimes it's between executive leadership and then the technical resources. Sometimes it's between the security team and the networking team. And a lot of my experience throughout that time, and 20 years or so, has been really heavy in the network security side. But as the perimeter has changed, that's morphed into being a little bit more holistic view in security architecture. And more recently, a lot of stuff in zero trust. And so that's kind of one of my passions, along with a lot of the wireless security technologies. And wireless for me is not just Wi-Fi, it's all kinds of stuff. But I think just because of where we are moving as humans and where we're moving as industries and security, those technologies become very important and are often misunderstood. So a lot of the zero trust stuff has been fun. For me, it's not a marketing buzzword. It really is real. We are doing it. It's a thing. But I think there's just so much misinformation, so much marketing hype, that there's a lot of opportunity for us to have conversations around what that actually means. And then how to do it, and when and where and how it's appropriate to do it, and take bite-sized projects. So that's been a lot of what I'm doing. Part of that involves the Cloud Security Alliance, who has a zero trust research group and working group. So I'm in the leadership team with that, doing several projects as well as some of their IoT stuff. So yeah, that's how I've been spending my time for the past 20 years, and zero trust for the past 2 or 3.
It's been a lot of fun to be sort of a sidecar to the journey that you've been on, and being part of that as a friend and colleague, and seeing how far it's evolved. Because and you've worked with so many companies in your capacity, both as a solution provider, kind of systems integrator in the security world, now as an advisor to CISOs and to organizations, whether it's one-on-one or, as you talked about, working with multiple groups. It's a tough gig. CISOs, security people, don't have easy jobs. I'm not telling them anything they don't know. But I'm curious from your perspective, because you spend a lot of time being an advisor to folks. Why do they need an advisor? What are they looking for from you that you're able to kind of fulfill, that they can't figure out themselves or get other ways?
Well, and let me qualify that a little bit. I don't want to say that it's because they can't figure it out themselves. I just think that everybody has priorities in their day, especially when you're a CISO, right? You're or a professional with CISO type responsibilities, because a lot of people I work with, don't necessarily have a CISO title or they do have a CISO title, but they've never been formally trained and had any type of mentorship in that area, don't know how to build a new program. So just a little asterisk of, I tend to slide in when people just need a little extra help because sometimes there's not enough hours in the day. And it is interesting, you mentioned, I worked with an integrator. Well, I still work with multiple integrators now, but working with an integrator for over 20 years, as well as consulting with IONS, who's pretty heavy in the security space. So I've worked with, at this point, thousands of customers across every industry, ranging from, the charter school down the street to large universities, every tier of federal government into Department of Energy and Department of Defense, lots of financial, lots of healthcare. And so, throughout that time, there's been different sizes of organizations and different maturities in terms of their people and processes and expertise. So it's been really fun. I'm a very non-judgy person because you kind of get what you get and everybody's doing the best they can do. So it's really been fun to just kind of get in and work with somebody or work with the team in an organization, see, what knowledge they have, what resources they have, and leverage that in moving their security programs forward in their various technical projects. But yeah, I think there's just, and especially now, I mean, gosh, and I really don't even get into, I don't consider myself cloud native. So a lot of the application security, I think this is fun because, you and I have known each other for a long time. I think approaching 20 years at this point, and you've always been a kind of like the software and application side, and I've always been on the networking side. So this is a pretty fun, I think, pairing of those expertises together for something that's pretty well-rounded. But yeah, it's been so much fun working with people, and I just think there is opportunity to, use platforms like this and our relationship and CISO talk and bring people in and just kind of amplify that and give, a much broader audience the benefit of all of that experience, not just our experience, but the experience of the different professionals we're going to be bringing on and talking to.
I think it's a different take on CISO talk because, with Matt, we're talking to who someone is a CISO. He might have been someone, an example of somebody you might work with or advise. But we're going to kind of have the conversation we're having, even though it's not with a specific CISO or maybe with a guest, but these are the conversations that are happening, right? And people are trying to fill in the gaps, confirm. By the way, one of the loneliest jobs is being the CISO or the CEO or the CIO, CTO, right? Because you talk to all the same people in your organization and the vendor community you work with. Sometimes you just need to talk to someone else and get their take on it, kind of validate, learn, change your mind, add to what you're thinking. It's, you don't want to kind of get caught in that echo chamber you live and work in every day. And I think that's kind of what one of our values in CISO Talk is, expanding that conversation on a topic that's very near and dear and relevant to our audience and what they're doing.
Absolutely. Well,
good. Let's do this. And thank you for taking some time telling us about your work, talking about your work. As you've gone from being a frequent guest to co-host. One of the reasons why I do shows like this, and first of all, I love talking with people and collaborating with you and people like you. This is another way to do that, and it's a fun and engaging way to do that. I kind of feel like, for me, our audiences are tuning in for the reasons we talked about. They're also it's part of their career development, right? They're learning. I want to know more about zero trust. I've heard the buzzword. I'm trying to implement it. Or cloud native and Kubernetes security. What the heck is that? And how do I deal with that as a security professional? Give me some pointers, some tips, kind of fill in some gaps. So we're really helping people both advance in their careers as well as doing work in their job. And I don't want to overstate that as something because I watched that episode of CISO Talk, I became a PhD. No, but this is all part of our continuing development. That's the one of the things that really motivates me about doing this. I'm curious, when we talked about let's join together and co-host this, what are some of the things you're interested in happening? Why you're motivated to do this?
Oh man. Well, I think Oh, if I had to slap a number on it, I would say probably 70 to maybe even 80% of the questions I get asked are questions that peer professionals or peer organizations have. So a lot of people, in the space, a lot of professionals they're all seeking the same type of information. And so I think it's a great, easy way to share that. I think there's also, I mean, if we get into this little bit of interpersonal thing here, I think there's a lot of pressure on CISOs. And again, security professionals in general. And I think there's this expectation that they're supposed to know everything and do everything. And that's frustrating because, again, there's only so many hours in the day. And for as long as I've worked in tech, there's still a whole, just whole circles, there's whole like huge parts of the Venn diagram that I read a whole Kubernetes book and I still do not understand what it does. Right. So, I think part of this is just having a community and just saying, I don't know everything. Where can I get that information? How can I ask the questions? And fill those gaps and just in a meaningful way instead of from vendors. And I'm going to get on a little soapbox here for a second. Let me just pop up here and say one of my points of frustration. So, although I've worked with an integrator, the integrator and the integrators that I work with still sell multiple products and multiple competing products in a space. And so, for 20 years, when I walked into a client, it's been out of this whole, pantry of things or grocery store of solutions that I could bring to you. What do you need and what fits for you? And that's fun, right? Because I don't get, I was never in sales, so I never got paid for selling anything, but, I am never attached to a product and never worked in that space. And I think, architects and consultants, have a little bit of an advantage in that way, in that we can pull anything off of the shelf versus a manufacturer and a manufacturer team who no matter how technically competent they are, because a lot of them really truly add value. They speak at conferences, they write blogs, they have a lot of valuable information. At the end of the day, the way they are fed and the way they eat is through selling their product. And so there's always just a little bit of bias in a certain things. They're certainly never gonna, show a mirror and show what their product blatantly can't do. And so I think that's the other kind of value of having a forum like this is we have the opportunity to share this knowledge very unbiased. We're not here to pitch products. We're not here to sell products. We're here to just purely educate and share and build community. And I think there's a lot of value in that. There's a lot of value in that for me, personally. I like sharing. I like collaborating. And I like educating people.
And of course, vendors, technology providers, play an essential role, right? We couldn't do this without them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They are biased because they have to be. That's just built into the nature of selling what you have to sell. And that is the role of folks who are consultants or analysts or lots of different roles, integrators many times, where they can kind of say, well, here's the options and let's look at what's the best fit for you. And that's hopefully where I think, with you and I, we can sort of fine tune maybe what some of those questions might be to ask the technology providers, or maybe ask your own organization. I know that's a great product, but let's step back and talk about why we want to use Kubernetes, whatever that is, if we don't understand it yet, and then how we're going to figure out what we need to do, and maybe what some of the important questions to ask ourselves are, so we know when we go back to talk to the vendor. So there's a lot of those things I think we can definitely pursue and kind of provide value on this show. So you're passionate. Let's talk about some topics, because this show is kind of about the show, and the format, first of all, is changing. Matt and I and Alan have done CISO Talk primarily as a panel show where we get 4 to 6, maybe sometimes squeeze in a 7th once in a while, to pick a topic and sort of get a plethora of ideas and perspectives about that particular topics. Sometimes it's maybe been a lot of vendors, technology providers on the show. Could be folks like yourself, more independent or a practitioner, to try to get a diverse perspective. And we have lots of shows and formats for that. Here we're going to go to more of a, let's meet with a person about a topic, someone who's probably doing that work. Maybe they might be from a vendor sometimes, probably more on the practitioner side, and dig a little bit deeper into that. And I think that'll give us a different perspective for the folks that are watching and follow CISO Talk. And we'll explore that, and we'll evolve and change our format too, as we find what we think works well. Our audience tells us what works well. Make sense to you, JJ?
Yeah, this show has been formatted to fit your new brain.
Oh, good. Now we just need to fill that in with some good stuff, right? At least mine anyway. Well, you mentioned zero trust and network security. I'm sorry, wireless security, of course, as well as network security. Those are great passions of yours. I'm sure network security, wireless, and zero trust are going to be some big topics. Is there any other things kind of top of mind that, I don't know if it'll be the next show or not, but somewhere in the collection of shows that we put together, some topics that you're really excited to explore? I mean, I have a few too, but I would love to get your perspective.
Yeah, I have a ton. And again, I think the core of my being, stems from that networking side. But having worked with network access control, so for me, this kind of shift into zero trust is really just a new way to do something like network access control. We're just kind of extending that air quote perimeter into the cloud, and working further up the OSI stack than we had before. But fundamentally, it's all the same stuff. It's just slightly more complicated now. So that, that's at the core of what I've liked to do, because it's complex. And it's one of those things, especially zero trust, you have to fit all of the puzzle pieces together. So for as much as I love, network security, that is always to be taken in a holistic kind of architectural view. And so I think part of the fun of the topics, that we've talked about, maybe sprinkling in here, is that we have the opportunity to look at these things not through the microscope of just the one thing, but how does this fit into everything else? Because, for years now, and especially now with zero trust, we can't have a network security conversation without discussing endpoints, without discussing the cloud perimeter, without discussing things even like maybe SD-WAN technologies. So, I think all of it fits together so well. And so a lot of the topics, I think we can kind of like dive into certain things, especially if we have a mechanism maybe for all of you guys watching and listening, where maybe you can give us some feedback and comments about, hey, get more into this, and we can dive more into something. But I think back at that kind of 5,000 to 10,000 foot view, there's a whole lot of stuff that we're struggling with now, that I see organizations struggling with and my clients are struggling with, which is things, for example, for all of the convergence we've been pursuing within the different pieces of technology, we have some things that we really need to be divergent with, and treat a little bit differently. For example, operational technology and OT is handled very, very differently than enterprise IT. And this is one of the challenges I've had in kind of helping with some of the organizations writing frameworks for zero trust. It's like, oh, all of the vendors want to put IoT and OT and what we would do on just enterprise LANs all together, and maybe even address them with one product set, and one kind of overarching strategy and umbrella. And those of us that work deeply in these spaces are going, no, this is not how we do it. And just because the vendors are pushing it to you that way does not mean that's the appropriate way for you to consume that. And so part of it is, I think these topics about educating, if you're a CISO, if you're a security architect or other security professional, where are these areas that you need to diverge some things and keep them separate instead of converge them? I'm using enterprise IT and OT is one example. We have, different opportunities for some of the stuff we're considering with cloud and on-prem that might need to stay separated. We have different things on the networking side. We're doing a lot of stuff with like private cellular now, which is cool. I love it, but it's its own can of worms from a security standpoint and from a compliance standpoint. I mean, it's a good can of worms. These are like the worms you would want to eat. Maybe they're fried and like breaded in panko or something. They're good worms.
They're French worms. They're French worms, like snake.
Yeah.
Escargot worms.
Escargot worms. Wait, escargot are snails?
They are. I know.
Yes, they are. You know what?
Not a good one, but
I'm having like flashbacks to this lovely restaurant in San Francisco we walked to a few blocks from Moscone, and they had like the best escargot I've ever had. But anyway, I digress. So I think there's all kinds of stuff from like, when I work with CISOs, it's we might be talking about pen test, right? And maybe it's an application pen test, maybe it's a network pen test, maybe it's all of the above. There are actually precursors and things we do before a pen test that are more cost effective and more cost effective and more effective. And so there's all these different things. I think it's like what CISOs should know about fill in the blank. And then we can kind of share some of that information for if you were here and making the decision. Here's really the bubbled up version, the takeaway that you need to know without having to go do 8 hours of research or interview 4 people and then try to go fact check and see if what they told you was right. So those topics are everything from zero trust, starting projects, identifying projects, working through a maturity model, because frankly all of the documents we have and frameworks and everything we have on zero trust is written for the federal government, and it's complete just rubbish if you're in the enterprise space. So we're reworking a lot of that. I think there's lots of opportunities for, how do you pick a framework if you don't have a controller or compliance framework currently, and how are you implementing that? How does that vary between different industries? I love those conversations. I think there's so many of these professionals that have gotten stuck into a CISO-ish position. And again, haven't necessarily had any type of formal mentorship or training and don't know where to start. And I think it's, there's that feeling of, well, I'm supposed to know because I'm here now. But I think we can, help fill in those gaps and the cracks there a little bit. Yeah, there's so many great topics. I mean, I could just keep going. I mean, there's just my brain's exploding with ideas over here.
I'm excited to get into that too. One of the things I'm hoping to do is maybe I can make some kind of connections in the software world, because the world for security CISOs, engineers has changed, right? All of a sudden it's like there's application security and APIs and cloud native, and we're kind of getting into the software stuff, even though we aren't software architects ourselves or writing code, though we may have people doing scripting and things in our security ops center. But you mentioned Kubernetes and cloud native. What's interesting is if you look at that from a security perspective, cloud native is kind of like, it's a philosophy and approach, like zero trust is a philosophy and approach. It's not a technology. There are technologies to use to accomplish it. You mentioned Kubernetes being one, but what it's really about, and I think relevant for us, is for a long time, the network had perimeters and things that we could protect. And usually there's an edge of the application, there's an edge of the network, there's an edge of where the firewall and where the application firewall is, and content filtering and all kind of things happening. And applications we got into through, 4080 or SSL or APIs, et cetera, that were kind of the external hard layer to the soft interior of the application. And what cloud native is the network has come inside of the app, because now apps are built in really small pieces, things called microservices, and they all talk over the network. It's an internal network inside a Kubernetes cluster or across clouds or across whatever, but it's network communications. And so we have, like, instead of one big app or several medium or big size app, we have lots of little things that are moving around and changing all the time, but they're all talking over this network, either amongst themselves or to other things, So we just start taking some of the ideas and bringing those inside to the application itself and how it communicates over this through the API fabric, and applying a lot of the security principles that we know and have tried, and also some new things. So we'll make some of those connections and hopefully make the world of cloud native a little less mysterious, because it's actually not that mysterious when we kind of peel apart that onion. And there's a lot of things that we can bring to the table as security professionals and software engineers to start to connect the dots to go, okay, I get it. Now I see what that is. Here's how I can help you, or you can help us, or whatever that might be. So I'm hoping we get to go there together. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And, Mitch, something just popped up while you were saying that. Because one of the things I hear, but both on the application security side, and then just in general, kind of broad spectrum statement here, is that, in a lot of the consulting engagements, a lot of the professionals I talk to are apologetic to me as a consultant, right? Oh, we know we're supposed to be doing this, but we're behind. We know that all of our peers are doing this, and we just aren't there yet. And they're almost embarrassed or apologetic about it. And I feel like this feeling about, most of the time, it's almost like, where they say social media, what do they say about social media? That it's
FOMO, fear of being left out, or whatever it is.
well, it's like you see the best, people only put their best,
Okay.
like persona on social media, like, look how great I am, or look at this, yacht I'm hanging out on, and they're, not showing you the I'm not even going to come up. I had examples. I'm going to leave that alone. But they're not showing the bad stuff that they're dealing with in their life. And I feel like the security industry is a little bit like this, that there's this difference between what's real and what people think is ideal. And so there's this expectation gap where a lot of people, professionals and companies and boards, feel like they're behind, or they're not doing something the right way. And, their peer organizations are doing something else, or whatever. And, I've seen so many case studies, whether it's something on the application side or on the network side, or just some broad security product. I've seen so many case studies where the company that's listed in the case study did buy the product, or they were given it, but they haven't even deployed it yet. And so it's like, all of these other organizations are looking at that going, oh man, they're already doing this, cool whiz gig shiny thing. And we haven't even done, our basic stuff. And one of my other soapbox things is I feel like everybody gets so dazzled with the shiny objects. It's like, oh, let's do zero trust. And they don't even have, basic segmentation done, whether that's in workload segmentation or network segmentation. And so there's kind of like this foundational knowledge that I think, Mitch, you and I are going to be able to do some cool stuff with, of all of like the shiny objects are just extensions of foundational pieces. And you really need to at least understand the foundational pieces enough to go build that if you don't have it, if you want to do the shiny things that are up here. And so I think that's fun, because that's something that kind of, those pieces fit together both on the application and cloud side and on-prem side. And I think that's another great opportunity for, a show like this with hosts like us and guests like the ones we're going to be bringing on. I think that's going to be great.
Put the building blocks in place, so it's not a shiny penny on the ground, but it's a bright star in the sky, right? This is how we get there. Well, let's wrap things up. I do want to mention too that we have some new URLs that we can use. You can find this show, if you haven't already, on techstrong.tv. There's a series menu and it says the CISO Talk underneath that. You can also get it through URL CISOtalkshow.com. So you can go directly to it. And we also are delivering this in podcast format now. So CISOTalkPodcast.com. Go straight to it. It's available on all your favorite podcast platforms. So you'll get audio and video on Apple if you want to watch the video that way too. So we're getting out there in lots of mechanisms, lots of paths for delivering content. And there's always good old techstrong.tv, and our episodes will be about twice a month. we'll be doing some live roundtables like we've done in the past, and have a lot of good time and good fun doing it. So, JJ, I am super excited, if you can't tell already, about doing this with you and learning from you and co-creating and doing some great content together and bringing in some kind of fabulous guests that will be part of this journey with all of us together.
The feeling's mutual, especially about the learning. But Mitch, I have to tell you, I can't tell when you're excited because you're always just kind of calm like this. Is this your excited face? Is this excited, Mitch?
I am always excited, so it looks the same.
Oh,
when I'm joking around, that means I'm having fun.
okay, good, great.
But I'm definitely having excited.
Yes, well, we will be. If you don't like joking, we will be very serious on here. In our very last episode. Yes, so just wait for that one and watch that.
That'll be the end of the series when we're like. But yes. All right.
All right. It's been fun. I'm excited about our next one and getting some guests in here. It's going to be amazing.
Well, and thanks to our team at TechStrong Group, our executive producer, Jody, and our video production team, the web team, everybody, graphics and promotion and production, everybody helps put this on with us. So it's we might be, so the two visible folks in the show, but there are a lot of folks that are a big part of helping create this, as well as our guests that are on. So JJ, it's great doing this with you, and look forward to our next CISO talk. Come back and join us in a couple of weeks, and we'll have an episode 2 of the 2.0. It'll be 2, but it'll be the next episode of CISO Talk.